In this video, we're gonna find out how far the Xpeng G6 all-wheel drive performance can go on a full charge of battery at 120 kilometers an hour. We'll also be doing a charging test at the end of the video, as well as testing road noise and how accurate the route planner is. How will the G6 compare to cars like the new Tesla Model Y and Skoda Enyaq? All of this will be answered in today's video. I think a lot of you have been waiting for a while for me to test the G6, and I just haven't gotten around to test one of these before now. I have tried to book one of these earlier, but there have been mix-ups on Xpeng's end, on my end. I've double booked cars and have had to, postpone or move, one of these loans. But finally, guys, at the end of May, I am in the G6, this time in all-wheel drive performance. But being at the end of May, we could have better weather. I mean, it is dry and it is cloudy, but it's like 11 degrees Celsius outside. We just had like a week with really nice summer weather. If you guys have been following the channel for a while, you can see that I actually have a tan now because I spent the last 3 days at the beach or in a boat and just, bathing in the sun. We've had like a few days now, 3-4 days with like 25, 26 degrees Celsius, which has been awesome, but now it's 11 degrees Celsius. So, that is weather for you here in Norway. Even in spring, summer, it can shift a bit and we can have a pretty big swing in temperatures. So after about, 50 kilometers, 30 minutes on the road, our average consumption is 24.3 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which isn't great. That is actually pretty bad. But in the northward direction where we are headed now towards our turnaround point, according to the wind map, we do have quite a severe wind at around 6 meters per second. So that is why we do ABA testing. We start at A, we go to B, and then we go back to A. So we're gonna go back to our start point at the end of the video, and we're going to regain, a lot of that energy we spent pushing, because we're gonna have that as a tailwind on our way back, but not 100%. So just take the results today with, a pinch of salt, because we may have higher consumption than if we had better conditions. So I'm gonna have this car for a whole week. I'm gonna do my long trip test. I'm gonna do a review. I've only driven, the G9 from Xpeng, not their G7 or X7 sedan or the X9 SUV or this one, the G6. But I'm pretty excited because this is very competitively priced. And well, it has quite a few interesting features like really fast charging and also a really spacious rear seat. But there are things I don't like about this car, which I'm going to, dive deep into in my review. But so far, it is pretty decent in this class of vehicle. So guys, we're just gonna push northward now, and I'll see you once we hit our turnaround point in Moelv. For the most part, the ADAS, the Advanced Driver Assistance Systems in this car, which govern adaptive cruise control, lane centering, or X-Pilot, what is called in Xpeng speak, or autopilot, whatever you want to call it, the adaptive cruise control function that also centers the car in the lane that does auto steer, which is governed by ADAS. All of the cameras, all of the software in this car for the most part has been good to okay. Once I activated the LCC in this car by double tapping, the gear selector down, it's been centering nicely, but it does get confused a few times, like when there's an exit or an enter to the motorway, it will, start moving back and forth. And sometimes also when I'm changing lanes, it just hits the brakes. And also for the first time on this trip, which is 100 kilometers to our turnout point, which we are soon at, the car phantom braked pretty hard, and I had a Tesla behind me, and I'm like, I think the Model Y also phantom braked in the same place. So are they using the same data, Xpeng and Tesla? Maybe, I don't know. So if you know, let me know in the comment section down below if Tesla and Xpeng use the same, GPS data or map data. That would explain a lot, and especially the phantom braking I've experienced in just about every Tesla I've driven on this stretch of road. So another thing we are starting to test and to measure in my range test, so not only range and consumption and also noise measurements with the proper equipment, We're also starting to do a new test where I'm testing the route planner, so ease of use and also how accurate it is. So when I started and left our start point, the car told us we would arrive here with 67% stated charge, and we are here with, let's see, 64% stated charge, which is 3% off, which isn't the best. And also, we've navigated to the gas station here. How can I cancel navigation? We do that. I wasn't able to add a waypoint. I tried back and forth. I tried, adding this turnaround point and then our end goal. I tried, entering our end goal and also this. Like, didn't matter what order I did it. And I tried all the buttons. There were no place I could find where I could put like a waypoint, which was really, really weird. So now we have to put the destination into our navigation system again. But before I do that, I just want to update you guys with the consumption, 23.7 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So it has actually dropped a little bit. So we have Circle K doll here, pretty easy to find. It's easy to use the navigation system to find a route planner. And here you have the information, the time it takes. So the car now says we're going to ride there with 32% stated charge. So let's start that navigation. It says it's going to take an hour and 9 minutes, but it always takes a little bit shorter time. But let's see how accurate that 32% is once we get back. We're soon approaching our exit and I couldn't make it up. Phantom braking. Look at this, guys. Why is the car braking? 115 kilometers an hour. We're basically going straight and the car hits the brakes. I mean, we're going 120 and the car hits the brakes and we're down to 115. So quite a few bits of phantom braking, and also like the car gets confused when there's an exit ramp or an on ramp. And yeah, I don't mean to, to complain about Chinese cars. I like many of the Chinese cars a lot, especially the Xpeng G9, this car's bigger cousin or bigger brother. But this car, it has a lot of the same issues I've experienced with other Chinese cars with ADAS, guys. And we just don't see this with the Germans, the Swedes, and other European brands. So this is a Chinese specific thing that happens with just about every Chinese car I have driven. And I hate complaining about it because this car is good in many ways, but ADAS, not one of them. So we are now back here at where we started. So what we're going to do in this test is that we're going to connect to a charger without preconditioning the battery. This car has preconditioning via the navigation system. So we're going to connect and see what kind of charge speed we're going to get after just a few hours on the road, passively heating the battery. And that means just driving the car, not thinking about preconditioning, and then connecting to a charger as if you had forgot it or you didn't know that feature existed. We do test the active preconditioning. That's going to be the next video, my long trip test. So earlier today it was pretty much empty here, and now it is maybe half full. So it looked like there were a lot more cars, but there's a fair bit amount of cars here. But we're going to find a vacant charger right here, and we are here with 40% stated charge. Remember when we left Moab, the car predicted 32% stated charge. Arriving here, so that is, as inaccurate, just in the opposite direction. So I think probably the wind today plays a role, and this car does not account for that. And also our average consumption, I'm going to reveal that at the end of the video, but first we're going to connect here and then we're going to go through the noise test results. So I've now started the charger from my phone, and the charge port on the Xpeng G6 is here on the rear 3/4 on the passenger side. And you press it there to open it, but there's also a button on the key fob. But I was having problems earlier when I was here charging before this test started, that the charge port didn't want to open when I pressed the flap here. But now it works pretty perfectly fine. So this car is on an 800 volt architecture. Usable capacity is 87.5 kilowatt hours, and this is able to charge at pretty much 3C, which is 280 kilowatts. But that is often in most cars, especially those with higher peak charge speeds on 800 volt architectures, you have to precondition the battery. And now it being like 11 degrees Celsius outside, pretty cold for being May, the battery pack may not be up to temperature, you know, but depending on the car, 20 to 30 degrees Celsius is the optimal temperature to be able to get that peak charge speed. And also at 39% stated charge, we are at a pretty high stated charge to get a, you know, peak charge speed. But let's see, we're gonna get 130 maybe, pushing 140, 150, 60. Okay, this is looking very, very good. 180, 190. Okay, so that is very, very impressive. 199 kilowatts at 40% stated charge without preconditioning. We're still climbing 202, 203, 204, 205. So I have not seen that high charge speeds out of a car without preconditioning the battery when the temperature outside is like, yeah, 11 degrees Celsius as it is. 208. And then we throttle. Okay, we saw a slight peak, and you know, not to celebrate too early, but yeah, we're down to 158 kilowatts, 159, but still guys, that is very, very decent for being at 42% stated charge. That is impressive. Now, before I reveal the results of the range test, let's jump into my instrumented testing of road noise, which is done with a proper microphone, which is calibrated, a computer, and proper software, so we're getting out a graph. And for all speeds, 80, 100, and 120 kilometers an hour, I do 2 measurements over 2 minutes each, and then we do the average. So at 80 kilometers an hour, 2 measurements for an average of 65 decibels. At 100 kilometers an hour, 2 measurements over 2 minutes each again for an average of 67.5 decibels. And I've noted here at 100 kilometers an hour, wind noise was a lot more prevalent than at 80 kilometers an hour, and it only got worse the faster we went. So at 120 kilometers an hour, 2 measurements over 2 minutes each for an average of 70.5 decibels. So this car on summer tires is a tad bit noisier than measurements I did with the Tesla Model Y, the new model, on 19-inch studless winter tires. And normally studless winter tires is the quietest compound out of those two. So I think this on that type of compound with the Tesla Model Y is going to be pretty much the same. So with that out of the way, let's jump into the results of the range test. So we had an average consumption of 22.9 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. We divide that by the battery pack size, 87.5 kilowatt hours, and then we subtract 3% for heat and discharging losses. That gives this car a theoretical range under today's conditions of 371 kilometers. And I think that's not the most efficient for being this type of vehicle. I think the Tesla Model Y I tested earlier this year had less range, but was more efficient, but it has a smaller battery pack, and that was also done under colder conditions, like 3 or 4 degrees Celsius. Today it was like 11, 12 degrees Celsius. So this car is going to be more efficient, you know, at a little bit higher temperature. So I think side by side, this is less efficient than a Tesla Model Y, but because it's offset by a bigger battery pack, I think the range is going to be pretty much the same, or maybe a little bit more in this car in the real world, which I guess is fine. But yeah, I think just, you know, without jumping too far into what my verdict is about this car, I think I do prefer the new Tesla Model Y, because this just isn't as good to drive. But again, not as many issues with phantom braking, though there are a lot of issues with the ADAS in this car. Yeah, it's kind of hard to win in this class of vehicle. I think some of like the Germans, the ID.4 or maybe the Q4 e-tron or maybe even the Skoda Enyaq is pretty much a better package in my opinion. Let me know what you think down below, all of these cars compared. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please drop me a thumbs up down below. And for more car content, as always, please subscribe. See you guys later and goodbye.